Hello and welcome to a brand new Traxion Control episode, your monthly magazine show / podcast where we talk about some of the hot topics in racing video games and sim racing. I'm Tom and I'm joined by John.
Hello.
Tom.
Hello.
And let's go. On this particular episode we are going to be talking about the fallout from the Project Motor Racing unveil, a new MotoGP game, and if I can find my breath, the end of EA Sports WRC and maybe Codemasters rally games, which is actually quite sad. But first, before then, this is a remotely recorded episode. For those watching on YouTube, you can probably tell I'm not in the studio because, John,
my car is, I was driving to Newcastle yesterday to record our podcast, and unfortunately, my poor car decided it didn't want to go to Newcastle. So I'm hoping the open heart surgery is going okay. I will keep you updated. But yes, my car is in all of our minds, and that's why we're here, right?
Hopefully the repair isn't too expensive, and hopefully it's not RIP John's Mercedes.
Let's wait and see.
Cool.
My racing subscription may not be getting renewed this month.
Oh dear. Yeah, we've got a topic on prices later on. But anyway, before then, the big one, which at the time of recording happened mere hours ago, this is EA Sports WRC. Which, to sound sanctimonious, if you've read between the lines of our recent EA Sports WRC video, we kind of told you so. But yes, so today we are announcing we have reached the end of the road working on WRC, said Codemasters and EA, which means that the current game will not receive a sequel or any further DLC. The fate of the team developing it is not yet known. We're awaiting comment from EA on that. We believe many people have been moved around into like EA Sports FC and things like this. And that's quite sad, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Codemasters name is just it goes hand in hand with the spirit of the arcade racing game. For me, anyway. I know everyone has their own first games, but the Colin McRae games were iconic. One of the first games I played on PlayStation. Obviously, EA Sports WRC and Codemasters being bought by EA, and Codemasters obviously making the F1 game, EA taking that over. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of questions about what this will mean for the wider portfolio. Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing at all. Maybe it's just a decision about this particular strand of racing game, or maybe it's a symptom of something larger happening in the background. That's what I guess we're going to be trying to find out. We're going to get journalistic and investigative and interview lots of people and find out exactly what's going on under the hood, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. But let's see if anyone comments. I mean, what we know for certain is that, and just to be clear, I think there are some comments online which are conflating a few things. This isn't the studio that makes the Formula One games, and obviously F125 is unaffected as far as we can tell from this. This is the studio based in Southam in the UK, whereas the Formula One team is in Birmingham. And since the EA takeover, I think all the projects that the non-F1 Codemasters teams have been working on have sort of folded or paused, or there's uncertainty there.
Well, I guess that's the big excitement around this as a story, right? Is the unknowns, and as you say quite rightly, the conflation. Because I think in the minds of the average gamer, EA, Codemasters, WRC, F1 is all one thing. Now, clearly there's different studios doing different bits, but I think and obviously the screenshots of the Codemasters social media accounts being down, although that's been for a while, but they're getting reposted now.
Yeah, so a lot going on Reddit. So, don't believe Reddit.
Yeah. so it's a really interesting story that if you're not deep into the industry side of our world, there's a lot of unpicking to do to work out exactly what this story is.
And also just to explain as well. So Codemasters made rally games for a very, very long time. Never had the official World Rally Championship license until this game, which for me was like a huge deal because I always thought they made fantastic rally games through Dirt Rally, Colin McRae. But then while they had certain cars and maybe locations that were used in WRC, they would never had the official WRC logo or driver or the full driver roster, etc., etc. And this game is interesting because the deal to get the WRC license was done by Codemasters before they were purchased by EA. So this is a pre-arranged agreement with a title that was believed to be already in development before they got the license. So the deal started in 2023 for 5 years. So in theory, this could have gone on till 2027, but clearly there are exit clauses and conditions and so on. What did you think about the game in general when you look back about it, John?
A little bit mixed. I think it was actually a kind of broader spectrum of a game when it launched than I think people give it credit for. In terms of, it was a new franchise essentially within an existing world, and it had huge amounts of content. It had a career mode. It had a lot of stuff. Yes, there were performance issues, and there were some, I think, really fundamentally game damaging bugs, or just like features that weren't quite polished in the right way that actually affected the long-term stuff, like the career mode not changing stages between different seasons, and some AI issues that kind of thwarted anyone on that front. But it just kind of felt like a new version of a Dirt Rally game that was maybe slightly more accessible, but also with lots and lots of content and lots of color and vibrancy. So I actually really liked it. I did understand the hardcore feeling a bit let down, expecting something a little bit more hardcore, but expectations I think were so high for this that's probably created more of the issues for EA Sports WRC. Fundamentally, though, it's not a bad game at all. I think it's a good game.
Yeah, I really enjoy it as a rally game, it can be serious if you turn the high damage on and you use a wheel, and some of the stages are very challenging. I really like some of the stage design. But you mentioned a good point there. I think being blighted by some technical issues. This was the first game that Codemasters ever used the Unreal engine to create a title for, and what we believe, unverified, is that there was a Dirt Rally 3 as a serious sim at one point in development, but certainly there was two separate titles in development, a more accessible WRC game and a more serious Dirt Rally 3 game, and then under the EA umbrella the decision was made to make one, and maybe that decision maybe compromised some of the vision for the title. And in turn, that maybe had a knock-on effect on sales figures, which and then in turn has maybe led to this decision. I mean, I'm probably speculating on the latter parts there, but it could be that this merging of two titles has kind of compromised things a bit.
I didn't expect the game to be canned this early in its life cycle. That was a surprise.
Yeah. Is this perhaps incredibly good timing for BeamNG, given our topic of conversation in the last episode?
Definitely. Right, that's a huge topic in terms of BeamNG is really pushing more rally games. So for those on PC and they're wanting to see a new emerging PC sim game, you're totally right. Check out BeamNG. But for those on console, sorry, you're out of luck there. But it seems that many other developers are working on rally games, so all is not lost. And that maybe segues into the next section, which is, as this statement went live from EA, the official World Rally Championship social media channels issued a statement saying that, I'll summarize and paraphrase. Oh, it's sad. But hey, the WRC gaming series will go in an ambitious new direction with news on the next title expected in the near future. So, someone else is making a WRC game.
What does ambitious new direction mean, though? Because it's a World Rally official game. At the end of the day, there's going to be...
Yeah, true.
If that's the case, it's based on a real-life sport. It's going to be the World Rally Championship. It's going to have the official cars and probably the official venues. So obviously that's that's marketing jargon in a way. But what is the ambitious new direction other than just a new studio, a new developer? Does it mean that they're going to go for a more arcadey route? Does it mean they're going to go for a more hardcore sim route? Or is it just marketing jargon? I really don't know. But that, of course, depends hugely on who this developer is going to be.
We will find out in short order. The other thing I think we should mention as well, which factors into all of this, is that the WRC itself is kind of on the precipice at the minute in terms of where it goes in the future. They're supposedly got new rules in 2027, which is actually quite soon, and they're still not determined and decided. And there's
the manufacturers aren't confirmed. It's shaky. It's shaky, rocky ground. Sorry, I should say. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So this will all, presumably the new game will have to tie in with that shenanigans. And I wouldn't want, it's going to be a challenge for a video game developer to make something for a couple of years' time, presumably, when you don't really know what the cars are going to be like. I suppose you could design some stages.
That's the last part, though, right? Like I think adding or tweaking the cars or changing it, that's something that you can do after 80% of the core gameplay is fleshed out, I would have thought. I'm not a game developer, but I can imagine cars are something that's easier to adjust when they know more, and they're going to have to know more soon, right? The World Rally Championship are going to have to nail down the regulations soon, even though it's a bit of a mess right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll have to see where the Real World Series goes and the video game. And I just wanted to sort of end this one stream of consciousness about the EA and racing games on that. Here are some titles that we believe EA has sort of changed or cancelled in its tenure of stewardship of Codemasters. So F1 Mobile Racing, Project Cars 4, that was definitely cancelled. We believe Dirt Rally 3 was. Need for Speed, while not a Codemasters game, is a racing game under EA. The team was seconded onto Battlefield, or most of them were at some point, and it will return in new and interesting ways, but we don't know when. It seems like an extended hiatus. The creators of Rail Racing 3, Fire Monkeys, the original creators, were jettisoned off the project, and the development was moved to India. We've had EA WRC now, the cessation of that, and Grid seems to be missing in action, although they did at least release Grid Legends, because I think that was nearly finished when EA took over. Interesting.
Not good. I don't like it. No. I don't like it. It's like our core racing game, upbringing, it feels like is just slowly being like chipped away at. And that's definitely speaking from the heart, not the head, but it hurts because I feel like a lot of association with those franchises, and it just feels like someone sneaking up behind them and pulling them out behind the round the corner of the corridor, and we never see them again. And I just really hope that some of these franchises can live on in some way in the future.
Is this a symptom of an oversaturated market? I think in the last couple of episodes we've discussed about how this next couple of years is a really exciting time for sim racing and racing games, and we've listed all these new games that we're expecting to come out. Are there maybe just too many? And given that how racing is all in essence the same, though you've got rally or circuit racing, NASCAR, oval racing, but there's only so much you can do with racing. So do we need 20 different titles to essentially achieve the same thing? And is that why EA, who make games that sell millions and millions of copies, are looking at this market and going, well, actually, it's already oversaturated and it's pretty small to start with, so we're just not going to get the returns that we would get on a Battlefield, for example?
Yeah, it's probably something like that. I think as much as we're being impassioned because it's our interest, this is a business. Right, and when we don't have, and even though EA is publicly listed, they haven't talked about the racing division for a couple of years on earnings calls, or specifically mentioned their performance, good or bad. So there's clearly they have a lot more. The uppers there have a lot more information than we do about how much money these games are making or losing.
I just think that it's not a symptom of oversaturation. I think it's a symptom of racing games being too niche in general, and EA having so many expectations of their games selling to millions and millions of people, that they then go, well, if you compare this with this one's not going to be working as well. And this is maybe why we're seeing so much of focus on the F1 game, because the F1 game franchise that's focused on the one sport that I think transcends the racing world and kind of talks to sport in general. So I don't know. I think it's more likely the issue lies there than oversaturation, but who knows?
So essentially oversaturation is basically irrelevant. The market's too small in the first place.
For EA, based on their expectations, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Although interestingly, EA would have known the size of the opportunity before they went into it. So something must have changed, or they thought maybe that they would be instrumental in growing the sector, and that element hasn't happened.
Yeah. Or you could look at it. They spent $1.2 billion to get the F1 license, and everything else was extra.
Well, yeah. So collateral.
I mean, just all in all, fairly sad news. But why don't we self-indulge in a little nostalgia? Tom, John, you two are massive Codemasters Rally Games fans. So why don't you two rank your top 5 Codemasters Rally Games?
Well, it's basically an impossible task, but let's try. So this won't be perfect. I mean, what would you put as number 1, John?
For me, it is a trade-off between Dirt Rally 2.0 and Dirt 3. That's where it's at for me.
Oh, right. Frustratingly, I have the same two thoughts.
I mean, I'm going to go first then. So I'm going to lock in my number 1, and I'm going to say it's Dirt 3 because it's more fun for a wider range of people. It speaks to my upbringing and like childhood of having fun playing these games. As a serious sim racer, Dirt Rally 2.0 is incredible, or was incredible for what it was. I'm not saying it's the most realistic rally game ever made, but it just got so much of what it was trying to do right. I think Dirt 3, though, had just turned the element of fun was turned up to 10 for so many people, and I just had such a blast playing it when I was younger, and it still feels great to this day if you ever go back and play it. It still feels brilliant and polished, and the handling's great, the vibe is great. So Dirt 3 number 1, I'm locking it in.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can't agree with that. So, no, I'll go Dirt 3, but we'll just say this. A lot of people prefer Dirt 2 because Dirt 2 had a greater sense of expansiveness and vibrance and colour and, I'm not going to say story, but character to it, with Travis Pastrana in your ear and stuff like this. But for me, the finished stages of Dirt 3 and the online modes of Dirt 3 Cat and Mouse were just riotous. So Dirt 3, number 1. I would then put Dirt Rally 2.0 at number 2, with the caveat of, at release, I didn't really like it that much because it didn't have enough content. And then all the Stage Rally DLC was Dirt Rally 1 remastered, which I thought was scalping customers. But if you look at it now as a complete package at a reduced price, it's definitely better than the first one.
I just put so many hours into that game and the original Dirt Rally that it would feel unfair of me not to put it high up my list, because I got so much enjoyment out of it, even from a single player point of view. Like, I just, as a rallying experience playing against AI, I thoroughly enjoyed myself and would like immerse myself in the career modes there. So, that's up there for me.
Right, so we're agreed on the top 2, but the rest really difficult to make a top 5. I'm going to go with the original Colin Rally at number 3. I'm going to go then with TOCA Race Driver 3 because it's a rally game by Codemasters. No, it's not. We're not going to do that. Then when am I going to go? I'm going to go the original. I'll go Dirt 2. So I've got Colin Rally, Dirt 2, and I'll think about the 5th.
I'm going to go Colin McRae. See, I was actually going to go Colin McRae Rally 2, but that's only from personal thing, right? That's like because that was my first Colin McRae Rally game. I was too young for the PS1. So I'll go Colin McRae Rally 2 in P3 for no reason other than nostalgia, so please fight me in the comments and you will win. I'm going to go Colin McRae Rally 2005 because I loved the car list and the stage locations with Colin McRae Rally 2005. So that's going in P4. P5, obviously we know that Dirt 2 is great, but I've like that kind of gets included with the Dirt 3 depending on what was your game of choice, right? So I'm going to put EA Sports WRC. Let's get it on there. It's modern. It's got, it's really fun to play. Loads of content. I like the idea of it, and it might be the last Codemasters Rally game. It's probably the most polished overall product after. Well, maybe not polished, but we'll not get into that. It's probably the all round package that you would pick now, because it's the newest. It's got all the recent content. So that's what I'm going with. And
you're completely wrong. Recency bias.
100%.
Right. I can't remember what I said now. Colin McRae Rally 2005 is interesting because I went back to play it recently, and it has. I loved it at the time. The handling is aged so bad. And actually, I think the official WRC games by Evolution Studios, which ultimately became a Codemaster studio, were better. But I'm going to go with... what am I going to go with? Colin McRae Rally 3 because it was the first on PS2 and a big thing. So my top 5 are, to recap, my top 5. The top 5 best Codemasters Rally games are Dirt 3... Dirt Rally 2. This is really difficult. Dirt 3, Dirt Rally 2, Colin McRae Rally, Colin McRae Dirt 2, and what did I say at the end?
Well done.
Brilliant. Yours, John?
Dirt 3, Dirt Rally 2.0, Colin McRae Rally 2, Colin McRae Rally 2005, and EA Sports WRC. And yes, there's nostalgia bias. Yes, there's recency bias. I don't care. There's all sorts of bias. Fight me in the comments.
Nice. And I said Colin McRae Rally 3 to round out my top 5. Okay, next topic.
All I have learned from that list is that they really needed to be more creative with the names of these games.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Basically identical.
Because the Dirt series is different to the Dirt Rally games. Oh, man. Some had Colin McRae in there, some didn't. Okay, next topic is MotoGP 25 is now out. Huge news. We've got a review.
Yes, and it looks fun.
Next topic. Right. Asetek SimSports. Asetek SimSports, which is a Danish hardware equipment provider for sim racing, steering wheels, wheelbases, pedals. Relatively new to market over the last 2 or 3 years. They've halted US shipments due to the uncertainty of the US market. This is important because, well, for Asetek, they said in a financial document, approximately 50% of total revenue for SimSports is derived from the US market. So that's a huge concern. They're also about to launch an affordable range, but who knows what's going to happen with that now. I mean, hopefully it continues, but just not for the US maybe. And I don't think this will be the first manufacturer in sim racing to do the same move. Discuss.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yes.
But they're definitely not the first that we've seen as well. So sorry, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think that is this the first of many dominoes to fall, right? And I know already in this episode I've spoken about oversaturation of the market when it comes to games, but I think it would be a fairly easy argument to make to say that there are so many sim racing hardware manufacturers available now. Like the choices are endless, and obviously you have the kind of the Chinese disruptors coming in. Simagic Moza, for example, is this the first of the European brands to fall? Will the if that's a word, more niche brands fall by the wayside and not be able to survive these tariffs? It's strange to me because of all of them, Asetek is backed by a fairly substantial PC gaming cooling business.
Cooling.
So of all of the brands, you think that this one would have a bit of resistance to this built in. It's also a shame because I think of all the brands, and I know I'm biased, and I've mentioned this on the podcast loads of times, I use Asetek at home. It's the one that excited me the most when it landed. It's the one that I thought, you know what, this could really do something different. This could be, Fanatec and Asetek could be the big players, because in my mind, right, and this is, everyone will have their own personal perceptions of where brands sit in the market, right? Because everyone will have they will have joined the sim racing world at different times. If you've joined in the last 2 years, your perception will be different to if you joined 10 years ago, right? But for me, it's always been Fanatec as this big, scary company at the top. And then you have things like SimuCube, which was the niche sort of like destination brand. That was where your hardcore esports drivers would go. And then you had Logitech and Thrustmaster and everything else. Logitech and Thrustmaster just filled the Argos catalogs and the supermarkets, and then you had everything else, right? Now, for me, Asetek was the brand that could come and sit next to Fanatec in that sort of enthusiast level bracket, and was one that I was really, really quite excited about. But also, let's not overreact. This isn't the end of Asetek.
I was going to say, you're using a lot of past tense here, Tom. A lot of past tense.
They're just stopping. But obviously, there's I think I guess what I'm saying is I'm worried, and I'm just hoping that this isn't going to pull brands out of the sim racing manufacturing market, because it is great to have all these options.
I just think it's worse. To me, it seems it's worse for American consumers than it is, I think, for the overall industry. Just because we were talking about what sim racing brands hardware are manufactured in America. So what brands are the Americans going to be able to use that don't have to worry about the extra hikes of tariffs or the cancellation? And I'm thinking about it. You go Thrustmaster, nope. Logitech, nope. Fanatec, nope. There's all the Chinese ones, Moza, Simagic.
They're really tariffed.
Yeah, hugely exactly. Worse tariffs on that. I think there's Turtle Beach is manufactured in the States, so that might be okay. But Turtle Beach do not have a wide range of options when it comes to hardware or a whole heap of experience.
Just to interject, and we are not political commentators and experts by any means, but this is a political topic, so we have to dive into it because it directly relates to the industry that we're reporting. Thrustmaster does, just to mention something there, Thrustmaster does make some wheels in France, T818. So they've got a tariff imposed on the European Union, which has been temporarily paused. So for now, that particular product should be okay. But obviously then the majority of products, and all these companies are mentioned, whether they're based in the US or not, if they're making products in China, there's so many different tariffs going on at the minute, but it's around about 125% at the minute on those particular types of electronics, but who really knows? It's not so much that as well. It's what I'm trying to say is it's the uncertainty. So if you're Asetek SimSports and you've made, for the last few years, you've been developing and planning and designing a more affordable lineup, if you try and get the cost down, you're probably going to have to make those in China. Xbox compatible, they've had to speak to Microsoft and get a licensing agreement and get approval, and then this happens. What the heck are you supposed to do? You can't, and you're a publicly listed company, you have to forecast sales? It's just lunacy. And
also, you said, and America is probably the fastest growing of the sim racing markets, right?
Yeah,
It's I think it's fair to say that the European market is the quote unquote mature sim racing market. There's a lot of sim racers here, and the US in the last couple of years has kind of like joined us. And so you can see if you're a manufacturer, you're looking at the US being like, right, this is an undersaturated, to use that word for the third time in this episode, market. So that's what we want to hit hard. So you're right, Tom. They will have done all of their planning about how do we conquer the US market, how do we get market share, and then bang, tariffs.
Yeah. And we should also mention that GT Omega, who makes oh look, I'm sat in a seat that I bought with my own money. # not sponsored. They've shut their US store, haven't they? At the minute, just again uncertainty. We're working on current plans, waiting to see what happens. I'd also want to bring up on the flip side, Fanatec recently raised its prices based upon tariffs. That did go down like a lead balloon in some cases as well. So there is another side to the argument. We posted the Fanatec news to our Facebook, and someone called Chris Ottman, as expected, literally anyone who paid attention for the last 2 years saw this coming. I'd rather pay short-term spikes and have long-term gains. Someone else, Kyle Manning, should be American-made product anyway. So they should be thankful. Better off without fan of crap. So there's a lot of diverse,
strong words,
opinions out there, and obviously this move was to try and earn money from tariffs and maybe try and stimulate US production. There are US manufacturers of cockpits, I believe, but US manufacturers of wheelbases. You're right, John. Do we know for sure as well that the Turtle Beach is actually that specific product is made? Yeah, it's tricky.
That's the thing. Like,
what about parts?
I can go through all the. Well, that's it. Even American products will often use parts that are imported. I think your opinion on the whole situation might depend on your political stance, but from an actual sim racing specific stance, this whole situation, as you completely summed up perfectly, the uncertainty is what hurts, because the uncertainty hurts the companies, the uncertainty hurts the consumers, and the kind of chop and change that's happening right now. It's just very unstable waters. So it's rubbish.
Yes. Well, we'll move on from there, but other than to say, we hope for Asetek SimSports' sake that things are more stable soon, or clarified, or there's ways around it. They did say, especially for liquid cooling, they're going to try and maybe move some production to Malaysia. Maybe SimSports could be included in there, but those things, they're not a work of a minute. And then what if all of a sudden someone wakes up and goes, Malaysia, right, we're going to tariff them. So it's going to be tricky.
It could happen.
Yeah, so anyway, next story and final one is Project Motor Racing, which earlier this week was the big unveil, like the first gameplay footage, trailer, hands-on impressions by us and many other YouTubers and media outlets. We were there in Zurich, and we have obviously articles and videos on YouTube and our website and social media clips. We've got it all. Check it all out. And we asked for the Traxion community's feedback and thoughts as well. So we're going to run through some of those comments.
And just to say before we do that I think I didn't go to Zurich with you, but you two went across, had 2 hours in what sounded like the most chaotic press media day in the world, jumping from rig to rig to rig to immediately get a hands-on feel what the car's like, see what the game looked like, speak to the developers, get as much information as you can, and then get on a flight. Like an hour after you're at a rig, you're basically on a flight. And so give it all of that. And just regardless, I thought the video that you put together for Project Motor Racing was really, really well done. And as a viewer of the video who's never played the game, it has excited me for it because of the range of cars in it. The range of cars and the selection of tracks, I think, is novel. It's different. I think, John, you made it really clear that you were skeptical of the progress when it comes to the handling, and there were some quirks, nuances. I think you were kind of being like, well, it's an early access, so let's not go in too hard, but there's still some work to be done there. It wasn't totally as you'd expect for now. But yeah, it did look like, to me, it looked like a game that is going to be interesting and different to play. So I had a good watch of that video earlier this week, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to come on to the thoughts on everything, but you're right. There are certainly things to be excited for, and also things to be, I guess, apprehensive about. But the day itself was crazy. I mean, I had a flight from Glasgow to London at 6 a.m. then a flight from London to Zurich. And I think, as you said, we had about a couple of hours at the event. And yeah, for anyone listening and watching, the way these events work, you don't necessarily get a huge amount of information or preparation beforehand. So you turn up to the event, you don't know quite what to expect. You have a little bit of an idea over what there might be, maybe a presentation. You know that you're going to get to try a couple of cars out. But then when you get there, it's literally like, okay, have a look around, see who's there, speak to some people, and jump in the rigs when you get a chance to. But they're very tricky a lot of the time when you're jumping in first impressions on these things, because you don't know the wheel setup, you don't know the pedals, you don't have any influence over the force feedback, you don't necessarily find out all of these things before you go. You just get in a rig and drive and see how you feel, and it's all very compressed. Obviously, while this is happening, Tom and I are trying to produce a video and speak to developers, get some interviews, set up the microphones, go to the toilet because we've just been flying for 4.5 hours. So these things are very manic, very chaotic. So you've just got to really try and focus in and say, right, with my very small 10-15 minutes of driving, what am I feeling and experiencing, and then deal with the aftermath after. But they're always a huge adrenaline rush, aren't they?
Yeah, we love it, and that adrenaline rush is one of the reasons why I really love this job and this industry. But yeah, just if people who have watched the video, like when John's talking, like he's talking and providing his opinions and feedback live. There's no pre-test. There's no we tried it. Basically there at the amazing Racing Unleashed venue in Zurich. Thanks again for their hospitality. But there's many other media and content creators from around Europe in that room, and only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rigs, and one of them wasn't working that great. So let's say 5. But beforehand, you don't know which cars the Traxion are going to use. You don't know about the state of the build that you're going to try. You don't know what's going to be shown and what's not, and no one's explaining that to you. So you have to figure it out. Right? We didn't know when we're driving it. Okay, we're not allowed to show the rain, and the visual damage has been turned off, for example. So that's why it's a first impressions. It's a first look. It's a preview. It's clearly not a review, and we'll follow the game closely as we go on. And
I do have plenty of thoughts from that day, though, which is good. But we'll come on to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go through some community feedback, and then we'll weave in our own opinions. Right. First question from our Discord, which you can obviously join if you want to take part in the show going forward. Before each episode of the podcast, we will post a question, and people can feel free to reply in there. We also post these questions across social media and YouTube as well. Is there going to be
Traxion.gg/Discord?
Sorry, yes, get the plugin. Traxion.gg/Discord. Follow us at TraxionGG on social media, and Traxion.gg/newsletter for the email newsletter.
People want more of the plugs.
They're here for it. Is there going to be crossplay is the first question, and I'll just answer that very quickly. Yes, because the Steam store says so, even though when we asked the development team, they're not allowed to say. Brilliant. Okay, Farming Simulator, which is a similar graphics engine and the same publisher, although different underlying physics, also has crossplay. So read into that what you will. Okay, next one. Might be the first modern sim with a career mode. I'd play that. And then a question from Osley. I don't know who that person is. The Project Cars 2 game had a huge amount of series to participate within its career mode. Do you think there'll be the same with Project Motor Racing? Obviously, the car list is smaller than the previous title, but progression in an offline mode is desperately needed in modern sim racing. Well, I agree. You too?
I think, yeah. First of all, yes, it's important. It won't be as diverse as Project Cars, I do believe. I think we know there's going to be 10 car classes. I don't know if that'll be expanded in future, but it's going to be a full game release with 10 car classes, 70 plus cars. So what that means is roughly you're going to have around about 10 cars per class. So I think what they're trying to do is add diversity and obviously different classes through the years. But I don't think you're, for example, going to be able to start in go-karts or Clios and work your way up to Formula One. I think you're going to be starting in maybe lower powered GT cars, maybe GT4s as a guess. I've not seen any GT4s, maybe some older, smaller engine GT cars, and working your way up to prototypes, or maybe lots of unlinear stuff. Maybe you're going off to the 70s to race classic Lolas at some historic events. We don't know how that's going to look, but it's very exciting. I just don't think you should expect it to be quite as fleshed out and diverse in terms of what you're driving as a Project Cars.
Tom, what are your thoughts about a sim racing or simish game having a single player career? Is that something you would be interested in?
Yes, but my caveat would be, I think, when I think of single player experiences, there's terms like career mode, story mode, campaign, right? So there's various different terms that are used to describe this. My least favorite thing about single player sim racing is when a career mode gets released that is essentially just a list of races, and you just go through that list of races, right? And so, that's where I think, and I'm assuming that the default position is that the F1 games aren't a sim racing title, because that's always had a really, I think, quite a good story mode. But yes, I think it's really important, and also I think it serves different generations of sim racers, right? As you get older and you have less time, and you can't necessarily race in a league, or you're not practicing enough to be to a required standard to enjoy an online experience. I think the career modes fills a gap for like a big part of our community. But I'd love to see. I think it needs depth to not be frustrating. I.e., there needs to be some story, some sort of struggle, maybe some kind of like character arc, villain type. Obviously the Devon Butler style nemesis that you have in F1, or some kind of management element where you're like leveling up your team and your pit crew and your engineering. I think yes, we need it, but what we don't need is career mode, and it's essentially just 100 races in a particular order, and maybe there's a standings table every 10 races or something. It has to be meaningful.
Just quickly on that, Tom, sorry, very quickly. I think that you need to not know exactly what's around the corner for a career mode to be intriguing. So like, what I don't want is a loop where after one season of driving, I see exactly how the rest is going to go, and I want to expect the unexpected. I want to not know if there's going to be cutscenes or if there's going to be a change in format. If it's just a kind of loop system, that you very quickly become stale for me. So that's what I would add.
Okay, yeah. Just to agree with the sentiment of a career is important. Listen, in, let's say, only simulation driving, so iRacing and Le Mans Ultimate, I think at the minute, like there's so much emphasis in online racing, especially iRacing does that extremely well. It's still going to work on a career mode at some point. And if you look at a more generalist game, let's say Gran Turismo 7, which Project Motor Racing is going directly up against because it's also coming to console. If you look at the trophies for Gran Turismo 7, which I'm looking at my phone right now, finishing one race in sport mode, which is ranked online racing, only 12% of Gran Turismo players have ever done one online race. So if you want to succeed to a more casual, less serious, but still wanting something authentic audience, you do need a career mode. Okay, next. The cafe books, what the heck? Anyway, next thing. A couple of comments here that not so positive, that are both, well, one just simply says, underwhelming. I want to finally have an iRacing competitor, but it seems that will never happen. And then another one saying, very well, that's it. That's the comment. Then another one starts with a similar theme. Very underwhelming. The sim racing world has moved on without project cars, and others are now offering what they do, but in a much greater quality and quantity. It's hard to disagree personally on that one in terms of, things have moved on a long way since then. I think this particular dev team is not exactly the same as Project Cars, but they did work on a Project Cars for several years that was cancelled. So that's maybe why there's been like this big gap. But
I think the second comment's really interesting. First comment, I don't think this is going to go up against iRacing. I don't think it's that sort of title. I think it's more about the cars, and I think the style of driving based on our very short impressions, which obviously, again, you can't read too much into because you don't know all the settings of the force feedback. It's an alpha build, it's not the final build, but we are close to release relatively. I just think that this is not going to appease those people that are looking for that type of experience. I think it's more going to appease people and there are a lot of people that really enjoyed the Project Cars series, enjoy AMS2, for instance. I think this game is going to be a really good evolution of those for the people that do enjoy those games. And we've seen a lot of people commenting that still enjoy those games, but I just don't think, if you're looking for iRacing 2.0, this isn't going to be it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also question, obviously I very rudely just shouted why, and all questions are valid questions, but my initial reaction was, why do we need an iRacing competitor? What would that serve other than potentially halving the lobby sizes, and therefore increasing the range of your strength of field when you're racing in iRacing or alternative iRacing. I don't. Yeah, interesting question. That it's actually, because you say competition is good and drives both brands forward, etc., etc. But there's a part of me that's like, no, let's leave iRacing where it is, so that if you want to do iRacing, you've got lovely full grids and they keep doing their special events the way they do it. But maybe that's a daft, very kind of almost communist approach to sim racing titles. So,
we're getting political again.
Sorry, yeah. There you go. I've just exposed my my political alignment. Communism.
Let's just rattle through the final few comments. One of the most upvoted actually on the YouTube community post was, "I'm dying for games on console, so I'll be pre-ordering." But then on the flip side, someone's saying, "Looks promising. However, with every game it releases now, I'll wait and see what it's like on release." I subscribe to that, just Dave 100%. Under GG, but I also agree with 001 Sander 2 that more games on console is great for the market and those who don't have space, time, money for full PC sim racing setup.
There's an interesting question from Adam, who actually runs the British University Sim Racing series, saying,
yes,
in regards to the multiplayer element, will the hardcore Project Cars players, interesting in itself, finally get their driver swaps? And he then goes, it's a long question, but he then goes on to say, is that now a requirement of a successful GT game? So it's a couple of bits to unpack there, but it's an interesting theory that driver swaps, in John, in your video about Project Motor Racing, you said laser scan tracks are no longer a nice add-on; they are now a requirement. And I guess Adam is kind of almost alluding to the fact that driver swaps are the same. Now you need to have driver swaps. You need to have a comprehensive pitting system, and you need to have laser scanned tracks.
Oh, it's tricky because I think that an endurance racing focused game, a big part of endurance racing is the team element. It's make a good first stint so my slower or faster teammate can then nail the second. That's a huge part of endurance racing, especially when you're talking about official games that are linked to championships. What I would say is you can also have sprint form sports car racing and GT racing as well. And I don't think it's an absolute necessity, but I do think it's a positive. It's a necessity for the official World Endurance Championship game, because there are no official World Endurance Championship races without driver swaps. For something like Project Motor Racing, which is, we don't know enough about the details, but is more of a kind of celebration of all things sports cars across lots of different eras. Yes, it would be great to have driver swaps, but I don't know if it's like as crucially important to the overall success of the game, because enjoying sim racing isn't all down to driver swap races, and lots of people will never have done them.
Well, interesting. You mentioned that it kind of being this like ode to historic sports cars. Simcast podcast, they commented and they say that they're going to be trying the game, and they also used your words exactly from the video that they're cautiously optimistic. But then they say it's potentially a motorsport nerd's dream come true, which is interesting because I always think, and I think we discussed this last time, that Gran Turismo works so well because there's a huge element of car culture as well as motorsport. And just Simcast podcasts comment about it being a motorsport nerd's dream come true makes me wonder, would this be, okay, I think I know the answer to this, but would this be the first title that gets the balance between car culture and sim racing? However, the answer to that is probably, well, AC Evo is kind of doing the same thing with their Nordschleife and their tuning.
Yeah, and road cars.
But it's interesting that we're now seeing a few different titles leaning into this concept of sim racing is fine, but we don't just want to generate an esports title. You have to have some notion of car culture, and where AC Evo is doing that in a contemporary sense, Project Motor Racing is doing it in a historic.
Well, I think this also, and you've briefly touched upon it there, Tom, and it's absolutely right in my opinion. So one of the comments says, Rennsport had a pretty decent first look 31 years ago, I think it was, which is quite funny. But the blowback from Rennsport focusing a lot on GT3 cars and the perception that they have of, it's just GT3 cars when they have some other stuff. I think other people have gone, how can we differentiate ourselves from that? Yeah. This was going to have the modern LMDH GT3s, but they've really leaned on Morgans, the TVRs, Gilets, which is not a thing you often see, but that's also bringing back that nostalgia trip, but also a point of differentiation. Anyway, we should wrap up with one final comment. Looks better than Farming Simulator, so there's that. And on that note,
in what sense?
Well, they go to more, but and they love Farming Simulator, and his wife
Hates
it.
Ignore her who's
Yeah. And it wants a chainsaw through
log with a chainsaw
Lamborghini.
through it in the SC63.
Very quickly,
there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there is. But
so I just wanted to quickly, before we fully wrap up, I think that with events like this as well, we have to be cautious, because the amount of times in the past where we've tried something very early, and Rensport's a great example. You try something at an event, it feels pretty good, but an EA Sports WRC is another example. You go, right, okay, but we've been told they're going to improve this and improve that, and the game will launch. The amount of times where we've seen people say that, and you think, well, this is an early build, so I'll forgive it this and this, and then the game actually appears and it has exactly the same issues. That is my biggest underlying concern with this game at the moment, because my biggest concerns with the feeling of it, the fundamental kind of the handling traits and characteristics, some of which I recognize from old Project Cars games, the understeer, then the oversteer, the kind of loose front end, although it's hard to attribute that to the game or the force feedback, it, like, even though I want that to be better by launch, I'm concerned based on previous experiences, hence the kind of the restraint from being too excited at this stage.
Cautiously optimistic.
Well, that loops us back round to WRC, actually, because when we tried WRC early, it felt really good. EA Sports WRC, there were some graphical issues, and, this is months out. It'll be fine. Right? Anyway, thank you very much for listening and watching to the latest episode of the Traxion Control podcast. Please leave us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts if you listen there. Just slap the 5 stars if you enjoyed it, that is, of course. And on YouTube, let us know in the comments some questions for the team. What would you like us to discuss next time? Thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe as well. And we'll be back in about a month for another episode. Hopefully, next time, John's car's working and we'll be in the studio. Thanks very much.
Pray for my car.
All right. Thank you.